I got on my wife's phone.
Okay. Well, I hope the phone lasts.
Don't think we got lots of technology.
Yeah. All right. Well, super.
Yep. She's got to plug me in. Otherwise, I might die, you know.
Okay. Well, yeah, get plugged in.
Because I'm on life support.
Right.
Mark, what is your last name again?
Dietsch.
Can you spell that?
Dietschhe. You want to move some of this stuff? Okay.
Can you say that again? I completely spaced out on what you said. D-I-T.
Diet. It's D-I-E-T-S-H-E.
Yep. Got it. And who's calling in from the telephone number ending 1307?
Oh, that was me trying to get on the way Krista told me to get on, but my wife got on the internet and got in a different way.
Okay. All right.
So just forget about that one.
Got it. Okay, we are good to go. Everything is up
The
and
only
running.
thing, Krista, the only thing we're waiting for is for the public comment person to check in. Has that happened?
Yes, she is in the
Okay.
waiting room, and
Okay,
during
great.
that section, I will let her in.
Okay, super. All right, Mr. Chair, if you want to call the meeting to order whenever you're ready. Oh, and I see Barbara is here too. Barb, can you hear me?
Yes, I can,
Okay,
Bob.
great. So we have everybody is online and can hear. So Mark, whenever you are ready, we will go ahead and open the meeting. I'm going to start sharing my screen so that there'll be an agenda, and then we'll just go from there. I guess, Mark, just because we have a new court reporter, just make sure that she can see everyone's names, but make sure that everyone says their name when they say they're here, so we know who's present for the court reporter. And then, Mark, if please remind everyone as you're going that they need to talk slow and enunciate for the reporter, and that only one person at a time is allowed to speak, and that you will be the one controlling who gets to speak. And so if they need to talk, they need to get your attention. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. We will call the Board of Adjustment hearing to order, and we'll have the call the roll. I'll start with myself, and then if everybody can just state their name. Mark Dietsch is present.
Jill Noreen, present.
Tim Lenow, present.
Barbara Lyon, present.
Crystal Halverson, present.
That should be it, right?
Correct.
Okay, we don't have minutes from the previous meeting that I'm aware of, Bob.
They're not available yet, so we'll have double minutes at the next meeting.
We will go usually well, I guess we can have public comment.
We do have at least one person waiting in the wings for public comment, Mr. Chair. So if you're ready, I can have Krista let her in, and she can she can state her name and address for the record, and we'll listen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to enter her in.
Thank you, Krista.
Whoever's giving public comment, please state your name and address for the court reporter. Are you there?
Yes, Pilar Gerasimo, N5797 163rd Street, Menominee, Wisconsin, 54751.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I would like to just add a note of concern regarding cumulative impacts in non-metallic mining operations here in the town of Lucas. I know that the county ordinance references consideration of cumulative impacts, and I just wanted to add a note that here in the town of Lucas, we do have a number of operating gravel pits, non-metallic mining, open pit mines. I am not voicing opposition to the proposition of the permit for the expansion of the mine, but I am noting that each time we expand and or open a new pit, there are concerns on behalf of the community, quality of life, air, water, traffic, noise, pollution, all of those things. I was the town chair when we developed the mining ordinance, the non-metallic mining ordinance for the town of Lucas, and heard a lot of concerns from local community members about the impacts on quality of life regarding a potentially growing number of mines, understanding that our area is rich in limestone and also in sand. So I just wanted to offer that perspective and note that as additional applications for additional mines in this area come up, I would advocate for consideration both at the town and county level of cumulative impacts in addition to individual application concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment?
I believe, Mr. Chair, that is the only one. Is that correct, Krista?
Yes, there is no other public comment.
Okay.
Okay, Bob, do you want to read the verification of the public hearing notice?
So I want to, yes, I'm there. So, Mr. Chair, I just want to let everyone know that this is a dual meeting. There is the public hearing for the special exception permit that you received a packet on, but there's also, we're running a public information hearing for the reclamation. And I just want to be very clear. And then when Chase Cummings and Amanda Hansen from Land and Water get on, they will also reiterate that their portion is not part of the public hearing. And so even though there may be some crossover, and we'll talk about how we might want to deal with that, the stuff that deals with reclamation is not going to be acted on by the board tonight. It's really for your information, but also it's a public information for anyone that wants to hear about or speak about the reclamation piece. And so there's two pieces to that. I'm going to ask Mr. Chair that as we go through the meeting, that when we get near the end, that before you go into deliberation, that we postpone your deliberation and give the folks over in land conservation a chance to introduce the reclamation, to explain to you what that's all about. And when they are finished, then I would ask that you go back and then bring the board back on for deliberation and for action. So
okay.
Okay, so having said that, there's a public notice, a special exception permit to expand the existing non-metallic mine in accordance with revisions of section 19.84 Wisconsin statutes. Public notice is hereby given to all residents in the town of Lucas that the Dunn County Board of Adjustment will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 15, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. The meeting will be held by teleconference. The applicant, Milestone Minerals, 768 US Highway 8, Amory, Wisconsin 54001, has made a special exception permit request to expand its existing construction aggregate non-metallic mining operation, also known as Gates Quarry, onto lands described as the southeast one quarter of the northwest one quarter, parcel number 170-1422-8141, 724-00001, and the southwest one quarter of the northeast one quarter, parcel number 170-142281, 41713-00001, and the north one half of the northeast one quarter of the southwest one quarter, parcel number 170-14228, 141-731-00001, and the south one half of the northeast one quarter of the southwest one quarter, parcel number 170-14228, 141-731-00002 and part of the northwest 1/4 of the southeast 1/4, except lot 1 of CSM 4121 and accept the north 16.5 feet of the east 379.5 feet. Also accept the road right-of-way as described in document number 615463, parcel ID number 170-14228-141-742-00005, and the southwest 1/4 of the southeast 1/4, parcel number 170-14228-141-743-00002, all in section 17, township 28 north, range 14 west, town of Lucas, Dunn County, Wisconsin. And it's also a public informational hearing regarding an application for a non-metallic mining reclamation permit modification. The applicant, Milestone Materials, 768 US Highway 8, Amory, Wisconsin, has applied for a non-metallic mining reclamation permit modification to the existing permit on file, number 01-63, Gates Quarry. The mine site location is described above. The reason for the permit modification to an existing site are as follows. Milestone Materials has been mining and processing limestone for construction aggregate projects at the Gates Quarry since 1997. This request is to modify existing reclamation permit and plan to allow the expansion of the existing quarry onto 4 adjacent parcels. The approval will allow Milestone to continue serving Dunn County, our community, the much needed construction aggregate products for infrastructure support. A public hearing information in accordance with Chapter NR 135 and the Dunn County Chapter 20 non-metallic mining reclamation ordinance will be held on March 15th at 5:30 p.m. by teleconference and in conjunction with the public hearing of the Board of Adjustments. This notice was properly noticed, published on February 24th and March 3rd, 2001. And so with that, Mr. Chair, that is the public notice. If there's no questions on that, Mr. Chair, without any objection, I would go into the staff report.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what I would like to do for the committee, because I get it. There was a lot of material for you folks to digest, and so much of it is technical in nature. We do have 3 representatives from Milestone here that would be able to hopefully address and answer any of your questions regarding any technical aspects of it. What I will do is give an overview from my staff report, and then I will go through kind of the overview or the stuff that Milestone talked about in terms of submittal, and then I will show you a couple of maps that were in the packet, and then I will go to our GIS site and give you an overview of the site, and then I will take any kind of questions that the committee may have, and if I can't answer them, I would ask that the chair would swear in the applicants, and that those individuals would be able to answer your questions. So without further ado, Mr. Chair, I will go into the staff report. I'm not going to read everything. I'm just going to kind of scroll through some of this stuff, but the background I think is important. Milestone submitted this application for a special exception permit modification to allow the addition of approximately 54 acres to their existing limestone construction aggregate quarry known as the Gates Quarry in the town of Lucas. This quarry has been under special exception permit since 1997, and during that time, the county has no record of complaints. The permit was revised in 2017 to clean up an administrative error regarding the parcel numbers listed in the permits. We know that there's pressures for the need for construction aggregate, and right now this quarry is nearing the end of its life, and they would like to be able to expand southerly into some reserves of construction aggregates. Analysis. how this is consistent with the county's comprehensive land use plan. The proposed expansion will not change the current land use, construction, aggregate, non-metallic mining. As such, it is consistent with the county's comprehensive land use plan. It's consistent now, so it would be consistent going forward as there's no change. When lands impacted by the proposal are zoned intensive ag or primary ag, how the proposal is consistent with our farmland preservation plan, that is not applicable in this situation. How the proposal is conformance with the county's comprehensive zoning ordinance, applicable standards in which the district is located. The property is zoned general agriculture, and that's a GA. And section 13.2.8, paragraph A indicates that construction aggregate, non-metallic mining for operations 25 acres or larger based on the life of the mine require a special exception permit and are allowed in GA, light industrial, LI, and heavy industrial, HI zoning districts. How the proposal is conformance with the county shoreline ordinance, that one is not applicable. How the proposal is conformance with the county sanitation ordinance, the applicant has indicated that portable sanitation facilities will be brought to the site for use by employees and customers by a licensed portable sanitation facilities. Pretty much a porta potty is what that is saying. How it's conformance with the county's floodplain ordinance, that is not applicable. How the proposal is conformance with requirements of any outside agency, such as, but not listed to, the Wisconsin DNR, the DOT, DADCAP, the FEMA, and FAA. I'm going to let the applicant speak to maybe all of those permits. They are listed in their application in terms of that, and so I'm going to ask that the applicant would make note to please let the committee know each and every permit that you have on file with regards to with regard to this facility. And so I'm just going to scroll through there, and we'll come back when the applicant gets in and they can speak specifically to those permits. Unless there's questions on those right now. Okay, I'm hearing none. I'm going to continue. If you guys have questions, you don't need to wait for me to finish, because this is a long report. It may be best that if you have questions that you get the chair's permission or attention, because I can't see everyone while I'm sharing my screen, and just interrupt me so that we can stop here and address your questions while they're fresh in your mind, and so we don't have to backtrack on some of this information.
Bob,
Yes.
I can't see everybody either, so they're gonna have to interrupt.
Okay, so the committee, keep your mics unmuted, and if you have a question, just one at a time, get permission from the chair to speak. All right, so the measures which have been or will be taken to ensure the proposal will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of adjacent property owners and to other property owners in the immediate vicinity for their purpose already permitted. The nearest neighbor, Carol Gates, and her address is N6309 County Trunk Q, is approximately 600 feet from the existing operation. She is also who the Milestone leases the land from. Over time, the mining expansion will increase the distance from the mine to her home. Mr. Kevin Bordenave, and we'll show you on a map where he is, N6275 County Trunk Q, is going to become an adjoining neighbor as this mine gets closer. The applicant indicated a minimum 500 setback from Mr. Bordenave's property will be maintained, and they can speak to those agreements that they have, that the applicant, which is Milestone, has with Mr. Bordenave and with any other residents in the area. The applicant also proposes to screen neighbors with earthen berms, existing vegetation, and natural topography. The measures which have been or will be taken to provide adequate utilities, stormwater control, and the necessary utilities facilities to serve the proposal. There are some, maybe some stormwater things that the applicant will speak about with their DNR stuff, but really there are no extensions will need to be extended to this property. And we talked about stormwater pollution prevention plan. All the stormwater will remain on site, and the applicant can speak to those permits that are held by the DNR. Measures which have been or will be taken to provide sanitation, domestic water, stormwater control, drainage, and other necessary utilities facilities to serve the proposal. The applicant indicated that portable sanitation facilities will be brought to the site, and we've talked about that. The measures which have been or will be taken to provide off-street parking to serve the proposal. Loading and unloading of equipment and product is conducted within the site. On-site parking will be provided for staff and visitors. The parking areas will not be paved and may be relocated as the project progresses. And that just means that as the project progresses over time, maybe their shop may or their office may move, and the applicant can speak to that. The measures which have been or will be taken to provide access roads or access to serve the proposal. Access to the site has been in existence since '97 and is via County Trunk Q. Emergency services are provided by the 911 system, and they will access the site through the main entrance. I will note under this bullet point that I have had conversations with the Dunn County Highway Department last year or maybe 2 years ago, but anyway, just recently, County Q was rebuilt, and in talking with the highway commissioner, it is rebuilt so that to accommodate all of the traffic currently with this project and even some expansion. And we'll talk about maybe what happens if this quarry is expanded. But so Dunn County Highway is on board with this, and they have no issues with the loading on County Trunk Q. The measures which have been or will be taken to minimize and limit traffic congestion, hazards, or other traffic-related issues. As indicated, the applicant is not proposing to increase production. Instead, they propose to maintain production at its current levels. As such, traffic patterns and volumes of product are not expected to change. Now, some of this is going to be dependent on the market and what happens, but all traffic accessing and leaving the site will be through the existing driveway onto County Highway Q. The measures which have been or will be taken to prevent, control of offensive odors, fumes, noise, dust, vibration, so that none will constitute a nuisance to adjacent or other property owners. I think that this is an issue that there may be some questions, or maybe that the applicant might want to spend a little bit of time on. The applicant proposes to mitigate noise through natural vegetative screening, earthen berms. All of the applicant's equipment is equipped with the latest technology related to noise. There will be some crushing on the site, and it will occur throughout the season. The crushers are brought in. They're not there all the time, so it's seasonal. And when they do bring them in, it's about 4 to 6 weeks when they are there. Those machinery are equipped with spray bars to keep the dust in control. They have an aggregate processing general permit issued by the DNR, and that's for fugitive dust during the operation and excavation areas. And they'll use water or calcium will be used for the driving services to keep the dust down. And in addition, the entrance road is paved to reduce dust. Now, blasting, I think, is something that the board may be interested in, have questions about. I've had several discussions with the applicant, and rather than steal the applicant's thunder, we'll just say that there's quite a bit of information that they have to share with you about this. But blasting is necessary to maintain an inventory of product. The blasting processes are tied to supply and demand, and so the frequency varies from year to year. But blasting typically occurs 10 to 15 times per year. Vibration levels from blasting will be measured through the use of seismographs, and related information will be recorded and made available upon request. Currently, there are 4 in place, and I believe the applicant can speak that there may be additional ones that have been placed or have been requested. So I ask that the applicant take note and please speak to the blasting operations and some of the things that you will be doing have been requested to do. The operations will not create any odors. The measures which have been or will be taken to prevent, control lighted signs or other lights so that none will constitute a nuisance to adjacent property owners in the immediate vicinity. right now they don't anticipate or they don't propose any lighted signs or other permanent lighting. In the event that lighting becomes necessary, portable lights will be with shields directing the lights down, will be brought on site and will be powered by portable generators. I think that the times that if this is necessary will be times when they contract quite a bit with the DOT, Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and sometimes the DOT schedules are such that those operations have to take place during the evening to eliminate some traffic on maybe the interstate or state highway system. During those times, there may need to be lighting at the site, and if it does happen, we'll be notified of that. But that lighting will be shielded down so that it does not become light pollution. Measures which will be taken to prevent erosion. Erosion of soils are controlled best management practices and by complying with the applicant's existing stormwater quality permit. And that permit is issued through the DNR, and the applicant can speak to that. All stripped topsoil will be saved and stockpiled in berms around the perimeter for future reclamation. Once the topsoil is in place, those berms will be seeded, mulched, and will remain undisturbed until needed for reclamation. And there'll be a brief overview of the reclamation near the end of this presentation and just before your deliberation. Other erosion control measures consist of straw bales, silt fence, and grass swales when needed. Hours of operation, they propose to continue operating at the existing hours, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, with option for night crushing as needed. I think there may be some changes to the operation hours, and the applicant will certainly speak to those during their presentation. So when we get down to staff's concerns and consideration, noise is certainly of concern, especially during crushing activities. And I'm asking that the board maybe consider having the applicant plan for those crushing activities. You know, this equipment is portable and generally can be set up almost anywhere on site. Consideration should be given to its proximity to adjacent landowners. They have been there for 20 years, and the only real neighbor is Mrs. Gates. But if the request is approved, Mr. Bordenave will be a neighbor, and so you might consider keeping crushing activities as far away from the new neighbor as possible to eliminate noise from crushing operations becoming a nuisance. Groundwater is a concern. It always is a concern in the county, and currently this operation does not excavate to the depth of the groundwater. I believe they're 80 plus feet above right now, and they don't expect or plan to go. It may be deeper, but they don't plan to reach groundwater, and they can speak to the separation between the bottom of their proposed operations and maybe the groundwater elevation. Traffic, we talked about that. While they aren't necessarily going to increase the volume of traffic, as time permits and things change, there may be an increase. And while Q was recently reconstructed to a variety of heavy uses, such as heavy trucks, sand trucks are available on this for capacity on these roads. Non-construction aggregates, all materials submitted for this permit have been for construction aggregate mining. Non-metallic mining for industrial sand requires additional and substantial different submittals to address environmental and social issues. So it's clear that the board understand that this application is only for construction aggregates, and we may want to specifically reference that during any kind of recommendation or any kind of condition. And then the reclamation, we'll go into that in a bit of detail later on, but it is required by the state, but that is not under zoning's jurisdiction. And while this hearing is combined, a combined effort, the reclamation portion is not an action item for the BOA. Instead, it's informational and meeting only. And I know that this next piece, I'm going to, we do require that the applicant goes and visits with the town of Lucas in this case, and that we do require that that we receive notice from the town in terms of if they have any objections to this. And so while that was, and it has to be 60 days from when we received the application was deemed substantially complete on January 7, which places the benchmark date is beyond that. But the applicant is currently working with the town of Lucas, as the town has a blasting, and that should say ordinance. That's a typo. And I do have Chairman Gene Ringer with us, and with the chair's permission, I would ask that maybe you swear Mr. Ringer in, so that maybe he could speak to this portion of the special hearing, and then if he has questions or concerns at the end of it, he could certainly chime back in. So, Mr. Chair, I turn it over to you and to maybe get Mr. Ringer in queue and speaking.
Hi,
Is he-
this,
Are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Okay. I'll swear you in. You solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Then go ahead.
Well, please state your name and address for the
Oh, yeah.
record, please.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Gene Ringer, and I'm chair of the town of Lucas. My address is N7198 190th Street, Knapp, Wisconsin. And the town of Lucas not only has a blasting ordinance, but we have a non-metallic mining ordinance as well. And we have been working with Milestone to achieve a mining agreement that would take care of many of the concerns of the community and put them in good stead with respect to the mining ordinance. Our response, the town's responsibility to the community is to make sure that the mine does not cause additional public health and financial costs to the community. And indeed, that's what our mining ordinance achieves, and our current, we're working on on this mining agreement with the folks from Milestone, and we totally expect that we'll be able to come to a mutual agreement on that. And so, yeah, and we also, as part of that ordinance, we also had a public hearing last fall, and it was well attended, and a number of people expressed concerns that we are making sure that we address in our mining agreement. So that's pretty much it. We're not in opposition of the mining expansion. We just are, like I said, we're making sure that there is little or no additional impact on the community from the expansion of the mine.
Yeah, from what I've heard so far, Gene, is sounds like the expansion is going to be more acres, but the output would be about the same.
Well, I mean, anytime that you have a bigger hole and such, it does have effects beyond what you would currently have. And we have, but and I gotta say, Milestone has responded well to much of the concerns of the community. So that, I mean, we have a groundwater monitoring program that's going to be in place that includes 4 wells downstream from the mine and 1 well upstream, just to make sure that nothing is occurring. We're going to be doing assessment of the surface waters. We have a provision in there to maintain or to make sure that adjacent landowners do not have property values diminished. So, and then we also have it whereby if, I mean, the major route for trucks is going to be Q. going up to Highway 12 or down to Highway 29. If there's a deviation, so it's not going to be on town roads. If there's a deviation from that so that it goes on the town roads, then we'll implement a provision that whereby there's maintenance of the roads that would be provided by Milestone. I mean, they currently have a maintenance agreement with the town for their Hughes mine, which is just down the road. And we're in the process of getting the road that is the major trunk for that mine fixed up on a more long-term basis. Hopefully this summer, when they get they're looking to position an asphalt plant in the Hughes mine, and so it'll make it easier for them to get the asphalt for that fix of the road. So yeah, no, I mean, one of the things that we've learned is that you have to take care of yourself, and that you can't necessarily rely on the county or the state to do it for us. And I think that the demolition landfill that had certain conditions put on it but not followed up on is a good example. So we take our responsibility to the community very seriously, and while Milestone is a member of the community, we just want to make sure that they keep being a good neighbor to the community. And if they sell the quarry to someone else, which happens sometimes, that the new owner will have the provisions laid out clearly so that they can be a good community member as well.
Okay, thank you. Does any other board have any comment or such for the town of Lucas? If there's none, Bob, you want to come back
Okay.
on? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair Ringer. I hope that you will stay on for the entire meeting, and if there are things that come up as part of the discussion that maybe you think are important that the board understands from the town's perspective, please do get the board's attention and bring those to their attention. So our recommendations in review of the applicant's submittal packet and our ordinance, the town's opinion, our land use plan, most of staff's address or concerns have been addressed. But there are some that haven't, and I'd like the board to consider them, and there may be more that come up as a result of this hearing. But noise and vibrations. Consider a condition restricting crushing operations to some minimum distance, whatever that is, from the Bordenave property. And we'll discuss that during your deliberations as to maybe what's an appropriate distance. And I'm guessing that maybe the applicant has some distances in mind that maybe are work for actually on site, and maybe have some information about what that distance might be. Consider a condition where the applicant shall provide a minimum 2-week notice to the Lucas Town Board, adjoining neighbors, and the zoning office, indicating the approximate start and stop dates of crushing activities, so that everyone is in the know as to when those activities are going to be happening. Consider a condition where the applicant shall provide a minimum 2-week notice to the Lucas Town Board, adjoining neighbors, and the zoning office, indicating the approximate start and stop dates of blasting activities. And I think that that's also doesn't seem to be unreasonable. And again, I suspect, or I request, that the applicant speak in pretty much detail about the blasting operations, so that we can understand that. Groundwater. Consider a condition where the applicant shall maintain a reasonable distance from the bottom of its excavation to the groundwater elevation. And they will be sharing with you maybe what the existing one is and what their proposal is. And then the board can decide if they want to have a condition, what would be an appropriate separation. consider a condition where any well, such as high capacity domestic monitoring wells, we heard the Chairman Ranger talk about monitoring wells, that if those become obsolete, that they shall be abandoned according to state guidelines. And I think that land conservation, we had a conversation about this. We need to make sure that the reclamation plan and any kind of maintenance or abandoning of any kind of wells beyond the reclamation plan, that we speak specifically to the abandonment of those or those wells. And so I think that we will work with you very, very closely to get some language that talks specifically about what happens when those wells are no longer needed, and what happens with those. Traffic, we talked about this, and that the highway department is okay with traffic. They're okay with even an increase in traffic, and they're okay with a substantial increase. But I think it would be appropriate that because we don't know when if there is going to be an increase, but if there is an increase of more than 50%, of traffic or volume of what exists the date of the approval, assuming that this gets approved, it seemed that we might want them to contact the Dunn County Highway Department just to let the Highway Department know of this increase in case it is going to impact the county trunk system. Non-metallic mining, consider condition restricting non-metallic mining operations to only construction aggregates. I spoke before in the analysis. We're not asking for any kind of submittals related to industrial sand, and there's quite a bit of different submittals that go along with industrial sand. So consider restricting it to only non-metallic construction aggregate. Reclamation, where a condition issuance of a special exception permit will be withheld until the reclamation plan has been approved, adopted. So I'm asking that we consider that we know that a reclamation plan is required, and that you maybe have a condition that says that Dunn County will hold issuing the special exception permit until that reclamation plan has been adopted. Now, it's possible, and I don't anticipate this, but it's possible that those negotiations could be lengthy. Special exception permits are good for 1 year from the date they are issued. If those negotiations for the reclamation are lengthy, the applicant needs to keep track of that. And if we're getting close to the expiration date of the special exception permit, contact my office and we'll negotiate extending that permit, provided it has not expired. Outside jurisdiction agencies can issue a condition where issuance of the permit will be withheld until either, and this is for the town, has indicates no objections, and Chairman Ringer indicated that the town has no real objections, but they are working on, and this only talks about a blasting permit, but the town also has a non-metallic mining permit, and so I would have you consider that our permit, the special exception permit, be withheld until such time that the applicant has finished its negotiations with the town and that the town has issued its permits. And the same provision applies here, that if those negotiations are lengthy, this permit is good for 1 year, and it would be up to the applicant to request an extension, but that extension would have to be before the permit expires. Otherwise, we have to go through this whole process again. And a condition where the applicant shall acquire, maintain any outside permits from other agencies such as the Wisconsin DNR. It is not the county's responsibility nor or jurisdiction to make sure that the applicant keeps all of the outside permits. Those are for those jurisdictions, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to read into the record that they are going to work with those outside agencies for that. So that is pretty much staff's report. Before I move on to kind of an overview of what the applicant submitted and then turn it over to the applicant, are there any questions right now that from the committee?
Bob, as we consider this, I just happen to be the chairman for a town in the county, and we also have a non-metallic mining ordinance. A lot of the stuff that we will cover are going to be covered by the township. probably even more closely than what we consider. So when we get to conditions and such, and Chairman Ringer can speak to this as well. We could a condition that they have an agreement with the township may make it so we don't have to list specific conditions in our motion if we have a condition that says that they must meet the conditions of the town.
Correct. And that would be appropriate because we're not expecting, I don't think the town is expecting the county to enforce this ordinance any more than we are expecting the town to enforce ours. So it would be exactly that way, Mr. Chair, that it would be according to their ordinance and their permitting process, and leave it at that. So
yeah, because that's what I know they're going to deal with hours of operation and a lot of things that we're going to be looking at as well.
Yes, and hopefully those are consistent. You know, some of those things are going to be consistent with what we're going to be dealing with as well. So,
okay, yep. Go ahead, then. You want to,
okay.
or go ahead with their presentation then.
Yeah, well, I just want to go through maybe some more of what they submitted because there's quite a bit, and you folks, I really didn't expect you to. Well, I did expect you to read every word in here and have questions about all of it, but sometimes I have unmet expectations, and so having said that, I would like to I'm not going to go through in as much detail as I did on my staff report because a lot of the information from the staff report was taken directly from the application submittals, but I will just touch on some of the high points, just so that it may spark some curiosity or questions on your end, or that you may have already had, and it'll give you a chance to maybe chime in. So, and then we will turn it over to the applicant and have them go through anything that we need, that I think that they should have filled in, that are referenced, or anything else that they feel that I didn't cover in detail that they want to make sure that the board is aware of. So, so I think of all the information, and I probably should have told you this, rather than let you flounder. And I apologize for this. But this introduction and probably the first 5 or 6 pages where they explain, everything that they're submitting is important, and then all the other stuff kind of just supports what they're doing. So here's an introduction, and we kind of went over, milestone materials, what they've been doing, why they're there, what they want to do, and why they want to do it. And so that's a pretty good introduction, and needing to expand to additional lands. We do have a $5,000 administrative deposit on hand, so that is there. We do have a signed notarized statement from Milestone. A summary of there. We talked about the scope of the project and why they want to do this and why it's important, and that a special exception permit is required. We do have a legal description. We did with part of that legal description, we'll talk about a little bit later, there was an Alta survey that was done, which is a very detailed survey. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but I will show an overview of the property, from our GIS, but there is a lot of information that was required on this Alta survey that will help somebody in years to come to understand the scope and scale of what's going on. And so that was a really important piece of information that we worked on with the applicant. They've been here since 1997, and this they've always been leasing from Mrs. Gates, and they are proposing to continue that agreement with her. The start and stop dates, this is really dependent on market conditions, and so if there's a big boom, both in construction of homes, but mostly transportation related projects. It could be quicker than later, but they're anticipating somewhere between that this mine will be operational for, you know, up until 2035 to 2050, somewhere in that range is what they're anticipating for them to get through that. And here's 15 to 30 years is what they're expecting. They're looking at me, you know, 5 million to 6 million tons are expected from the area. Evidence that they have the ability to carry out. We did get some financials from Milestone that shows that they do have the wherewithal to deal with this and to sustain this operation. And then they signed to the accuracy of it. And I'd just like to go through just a little bit more things here. This is the Alta survey, and this is the stuff that was on there, or that they had to show, and that is in our files. And if you want to see that, it was included in the packet, and I'll try to blow that up and maybe show some areas of that if you want to see it. But I think most of this, there's some maps at the end that I will show, and then our GIS map will really help to get to, for you folks to understand maybe the scope and scale of what's going on. Hours of operation, we've talked about that. The applicant will speak if they're going to maintain those or if they're going to be different. And I think those may be through discussions with the town. And there are some, you know, on the Alta survey, there's some areas that show all of these things. And if you need to see specifically where some of this stuff is, we can describe it, or we'll find a way to make sure that you understand where this stuff is going to be located on site. There is a hydrologist report, and if you're interested or have questions about the hydrology and maybe, you know, the capacity of this well, and it's really there for dust suppression and some washing, you can ask. They're one of the applicants. People that's here can speak specifically to the hydraulic report. They're not really proposing any hazardous materials that they store on site. They do have a spoil prevention plan that's on file, and so if something does happen, there is a process in place that says who they will notify and what they will do and who will do what, and so that is already on file, and that's both with the county and with the state. Transportation routes, Chairman Ranger indicated that they have agreed to restrict the traffic to only the county trunk system and to the state and federal highway system. And if they deviate from there, then they will let those jurisdictions know, because there will be some impacts to the local roads for this. A transportation analysis, we already know what's going on. We did not require another study. I did have a discussion with the Dunn County Highway Department to make sure that they didn't need a transportation impact analysis. And indeed, when they redid County Q, they took into account this operation and the potential for expansion. And so we did not require a traffic impact analysis for this project. A description of chemicals, and here's a description of the chemicals: calcium chloride, you know, and there's some wash plants, and I'm not going to go into real detail. I would recommend that if any of the board has specific questions about the chemicals, write that question, and when the applicant comes up, then ask them specifically of the applicant. But I will bring this back up for reference, but I'm not going to go through the list of chemicals. I'm sure that the applicant can speak more clearly to that, and especially if members of the board have some specific questions. Topsoil, here's they did quite a bit of soil exploration, so we know what's on site, and so here's some stuff about topsoil: 2 to 12 feet of subsoil, and the topsoil varies 8 to 9 inches, and subsoils 4 to 25 inches. Here we talked about this already. Measures to control noise, and I think we'll ask them to speak specifically about some of the noise, especially with crushing operations and blasting. Those are the two big noise generators that are going to be on site. The methods that they're going to be extracting, it's pretty much blast and dig, loading it up, crushing and hauling it away is kind of a real generic overview. And if you have specific questions about their mining operations, please note this piece number 19, and we'll have the applicant speak specifically to your questions. Here's some of the equipment involved for this operation. Measures to screen views of it. There is a lot of topography in this area, and so if you've driven by on County Q, which I'm guessing that most of you have driven this part of the county, it's hard to see what's going on just because of the topography and how far they are off the road. They're going to maintain that same type of operations, and they've even proposed some setbacks from property lines and from future and from residences for future reclamation. So we can speak specifically to that. This may really come into play when we're talking about maybe noise from the crushing operations in terms of distances from residences. We talked about lighting already. They don't have any. They're not proposing any. But if they do, it will be portable, and that it will have some pieces on it to direct that light straight down and not up into the air. Air and water quality and environmental standards. There's the DNR has some stuff for fugitive dust, and they have stormwater pollution control. There's quite a bit with the DNR and sort of stormwater management. A lot of their operation is just really to keep dust down. So the calcium chloride, and we can talk to the application about the impacts of calcium chloride, when they spray it, how long it's there and what it has to the environment. But I think they have been committed to keeping dust down, and I think that's going to be a concern that the board may want to really follow up on as part of a recommendation or a condition, making sure that noise and dust are taken care of. And so we talked about screening the buffer zone. The quarry is currently gated and locked when it's not in operation, and so it is secure. There's only one way in, one way out, and so it is a fairly secure operation. We talked about lighting. If there is any on-site fuel storage, it will be in an above ground tank with a secondary containment that's required by statutes, that there's a fail-safe mechanism for on-site fuel storage, so that if there is a rupture, that it's contained within their system. We talked about hours of operation. They will speak to that. And trucking occurs during those hours. They're usually open Monday through Friday, and crushing occurs 1 or 2 times a season, 4 to 6 weeks. And we talked about maybe requiring notification as to when those operations are going to happen. Noise other than backup beepers, we'll want to talk about noise both from the crushing operations and maybe from blasting, as well as from equipment that's on site. We've talked about dust and the things that on their equipment and what they're doing to keep dust down both on the roads, and we can have them speak to that in more detail. Blasting, there are some standards that they have to adhere to, and I know in talking with the applicant that there's some things that they do in terms of making sure that their interests are maintained and protected in terms of residents for claims against blasting. But vibrations from blasting is going to be an issue. People that are getting closer are going to be feeling these vibrations as they go off, but know that there are some standards that they will be following, and that they will be giving both the town and neighbors notification if that's a condition that the board seems that's necessary. They do keep logs of all this, and that if we needed that information, they would make that available upon request. Here they talk about that there will be approximately 80 to 160 feet above the groundwater, and so we can talk about that. And there is a hydrological report, and I think that one of the people here with Milestone can speak specifically to that report. I'm not going to go into this, except that the town of Lucas blasting ordinance, within half a mile, will be offered some tests for the water. They're not going to be close to the groundwater. There is some monitoring wells that will be going in, and so there will be data from those. Additional groundwater modeling, if the board thinks that there's additional things or that they want some duplicate things that are required, that will be up for discussion with the board and the applicant. There haven't been any citations. They've been a very good neighbor, but currently the county does not have citation authority, but we're working towards that. If the either Milestone, or if they were to sell it to somebody else, the conditions of this special exception go with the land and not with the owner. And so regardless of who the owner is, if there are violations and we being zoning and the landowner, the applicant can't come to terms, then we would have to bring them back before the board to discuss maybe what they need or should be doing. Surface water protection, it's WPDS works with them internally, and they'll talk about maybe what they have in place. And here they talk about just some of the maps and stuff that they've used in our maps, our comprehensive land use plan, all the stuff, the socioeconomic things that go along with the application. And now we get back into pretty much what the staff report was. There's a couple other things that I want to show the board, and then I can turn it over for questions and or to the applicant to kind of fill in, just so we get a sense of scale and maybe where this is, if you haven't had a chance to get out and find this. See if I can get this a little bit better on the screen. So this is the yellow is the boundary of what will be the site, assuming that the board approves the request, and they've also listed, within a certain distance around where the residences are in relationship to their site. There's also some boring holes, some core holes that they've taken, and if you need to know specific information or what those are for, they can explain maybe what's on this map and maybe the information that they know about these bores and what they are. I have this is really difficult to read, but it just goes to show you that. So here's Q, and this is the topography, and so you can see there's some very steep slopes in and around the site, and so most of the residents are and people will be screened just because of topography, but there are going to be some other requirements for screening, such as berms and natural vegetation that go along, probably more with the reclamation plan, but the board may also can include some screening requirements as you deem necessary. And this is just kind of a list of all the people, the residents, the landowners around this property. And this one is probably closer. This is probably getting close to what is going to be considered the reclamation plan. But this is really a plan that shows how they're going to move through the site, and as they move through the site, the direction that the stormwater is going to be directed to, so they can take care of that. And so the red lines is Milestone moving through this project over time. And then this is a map which is fairly close to the reclamation plan, and I think it's intended to be a very generic reclamation plan. And you can see that as they finish their operation, that when they get finished, there are going to be some very steep slopes. There may be some high banks, but it's going to be reclaimed pretty much as pasture land. And you can see that, how the water inside of there is going to be graded. All slopes will be at a 3-to-1 or flatter, and that the final floor is plus or minus elevation 1110. And if you need reference to what that is, I can help you to understand maybe where that is in relationship to the rest of the world. The last thing that I want to show, just so that we have a sense of where this is this is an aerial of the project or the property. Just for reference, here's I-94, and this is St. Croix County over to here, and here is County Trunk Q. This is Mrs. Gates' property. This is and I forget the new fellow's name, but I'll find that for you. So this is Mr. Bordennave's property, and so he is going to be the new landowner that will be impacted by this operation as they move through it. So it's pretty much goes down through here and down up to here. And if you need, I can turn the topography on, but again, we saw that it's fairly steep topography. There's hills that kind of screen it, and that they are going to be down to a certain elevation, but well above the groundwater. And so that pretty much is an overview from zoning's perspective to the board. Are there questions that maybe of zoning that I could ask, or questions that if I can't, that we could have the applicant sworn in and they could address your questions. So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn it back over to you. And if the board has no questions, then maybe I would suggest that we swear the applicants in, because I believe there's 3 of them that are waiting, and they could all be sworn in, and then they could finish up the presentation. And again, before you go into deliberation, I would ask that we hold that off, and then we would go into an overview of the reclamation plan with the land conservation staff that are waiting in the wings as well. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will turn it back over to the board.
Okay. We have three members of the that represent the applicant. I don't know how you want me to. Would you like to have me swear all 3 of you in, or is there one main spokesman, and then if someone else wants to speak, I can swear them as needed, or how would the applicant like this done?
Hi, I'm Candy Anderson, and I'm with Milestone Materials. I'm the gal that wrote the application. So if you would like, you could start with me. And
Okay.
I also brought Bob Service tonight. He's on the call. He's our hydrogeologist, and Tony Tomaszek, our vice president. So if there are questions that I might not be able to address, we could swear them in at that time, or whatever is easiest for the board to do.
Yeah. I'll swear you in then, and we'll do it. We'll just proceed, and if there's questions for the others, I will swear them at that time.
Sounds good.
So, do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. I don't know where you want to start, but you probably have a presentation, whether it's brief or long, but go ahead.
Thank you, Mark. I do. And Bob, thank you for the staff report. Bob covered a lot of what I was going to say, so I will try to not repeat what he said, and
Candy,
then
could I interrupt real quickly? Just and
Sure.
everyone, when you're sworn in, please give your name and address for the record.
Candy Anderson. My office address is 768 US Highway 8, Amory, Wisconsin, 54001.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. So everybody, I just will take a minute to introduce myself. Candy Anderson with Milestone Materials. I have been working in the Dunn County area for about the past 25 years with the zoning department with construction aggregate sites. I myself am also a resident of Dunn County for the last 21 years. And I am the one that wrote the application. I wrote it in accordance with the Dunn County non-metallic portion of their zoning ordinance. It was very active when the zoning ordinance was being revised, when a lot of the frac sand stuff was going on. And I really felt it important that at that time that the construction aggregate non-metallic mines were kept separate from the industrial sand. So I just want to give you a brief history about the Gates Quarry. The current reserves are becoming depleted. Bob did talk about that. This property that we're calling the Gates expansion area that we're applying for is about 54 acres, and it's south of the existing quarry. And when we were able to determine that the quarry was starting to come to the end of its useful life, we started looking for a replacement. We did a lot of testing in the area and in the region, and we found that the property to the south that we're applying for has some of the highest quality aggregate reserves that we could find. And as we know, the roads and the infrastructure need maintenance and repair. I know my most recent, or a couple weeks ago, the Glenwood City paper had an article about a recent Dunn County board meeting about the state of our roads in our county needing repair and maintenance, and how the vitality of our roads is very necessary for business and economic activity. It's very necessary for the traveling public to have safe roads for the health, safety, and welfare. And that's what the Gates Quarry provides, construction aggregates that goes directly to support the infrastructure of the local and surrounding areas. This application tonight is pretty large, but I wanted to make sure that it met the intent of the ordinance, the zoning ordinance. And I feel that it's a very good application and it meets the intent of the ordinance, which is also meant to help protect the health, safety, and welfare of citizens of this county. And I feel that over the last 25 years, I myself have had a good relationship with Dunn County, as well as Milestone Materials has had a good relationship with Dunn County and the town of Lucas. And we want to continue to do that. This is going to be a long-term project, anywhere from 20 to 30 years. So I was probably before some of you in 2017 when I came in and submitted the Gates application for an administrative error with some parcel numbers. And so this is that same property, just the property to the south of the existing quarry. Since the original permit was issued for the existing Gates Quarry in 1997, we have obtained all of our required permits. And to speak about some of those, we had to obtain a stormwater permit. So we have an existing stormwater permit for the Gates Quarry. What we will have to do is, if our application is approved here tonight and with the town of Lucas, we will just simply have to modify that stormwater permit with the Wisconsin DNR. We move portable crushers and portable equipment in and out of the Gates Quarry. So each portable crushing unit has its own air permit with the Wisconsin DNR. So I've included copies of the stormwater permit in the packet that I submitted. Also copies of a crusher air permit. We have different crushers that will move in and out of the site various times throughout the year. They all have to have an air permit. So there are a lot of state permits that were required. We've operated in accordance with all of those. We have never had any violations for any of the permits that we hold for the Gates Quarry. We did reach out to the board names in August to talk to them. And this was before we submitted any applications. And we're going to work with them to meet their needs on what kind of screening that they would like from our operation. In accordance with the Dunn County zoning ordinance, we have shown a 500-foot setback from their residence on our operations map. So our operations will be a minimum of 500 feet away. Now, in those setback areas that we have from property lines and from the board names, those areas we would use to store topsoil or overburden that has to be kept on site for our reclamation plan. In our negotiations with the town of Lucas, we have proposed to them a site boundary security plan. So it will be a combination of berms, fences, but with the board names, we want to try to have a little flexibility with our screening for them, because at the time, they weren't sure if they wanted berms, fence, or both, or trees, or kind of what they wanted, and they wanted to take the time to think about that. So we're hoping to have a little flexibility to put screening there that will suit them, since they're the ones that will have to be looking at it. So we are working with doing screening for the nearest neighbors there. And Gene was on, he touched about the mining agreement that we are negotiating. One thing that I did want to point out, the hours that we proposed originally in this application in September have changed. Right now, we're working with the town. We're hoping to ask for hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday for the expansion area. And Dunn County's ordinance and the town of Lucas was hoping for 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. During Central Standard Time, and 7 to 7 in daylight savings time. We would really like to be able to have the flexibility to just keep the hours straight 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and not have the daylight savings time in the middle of that. So I won't talk about the mining agreement. Gene pretty much already covered that. I did want to talk a little bit about the acres. We do have 54 acres in this request. We also have approximately 22 acres that will be part of this permit, but those 22 acres will be utilized as setback areas. So in those setback areas is where we'll store our topsoil and our overburden. And it benefits for two things. We need a place to keep the topsoil and the overburden to save for reclamation. And it also works wonderful for noise and visual screening. So the setback areas are very important. We've included about 22 acres of that. We did have, and Bob mentioned this, we did have a hydrogeological analysis done, a very extensive one. And this is a dry quarry, and it will continue to be a dry quarry. We're going to be anywhere from 80 to 160 feet above the groundwater table. So in the northeast portion of the site, we will be approximately 80 feet above the groundwater. And then as we head down to the southwest, we'll be about 160 feet above the groundwater. So the groundwater flow also is to the southwest. And we are working with the township on a hydro or a groundwater monitoring program, so that we'll have those things installed before we start moving into the expansion area. One thing that is new, if we were approved here tonight and approved at the town of Lucas, we would apply for a high capacity well. And Bob had touched on this for washing our aggregates. And the reason that we have to wash some of our aggregates is when we are making our products, particularly like a aggregate that's used for concrete. If you're making concrete and you have cement and water, you mix those together, you get a glue. And that glue, if you add dirty rocks to that, the glue is going to stick to the dirt and it's not going to stick to the rocks. So when you go to pour your concrete for a road or bridge or basement, you're not going to have a very strong bond. So it's going to cause that structure to fail a lot faster than if you have a strong bond. So that's one of the reasons why we do washing of aggregates. So Bob had mentioned chemicals. We do propose to wash our aggregates with flocculants. Now that is a common practice in our industry and has been for many years before they came up on the radar with the industrial sand. And we are permitted with the DNR to wash with flocculants. And I've included those permits in our packet that I submitted. And the reason for the flocculants is what they do is they allow us to add to the water that we're washing with. And along with what we call wash ponds, we're able to form a closed loop system with our washing. And what that does is then it eliminates or reduces the need on having to pump more water from the high capacity well, because the water will move through the wash ponds. And with the aid of that flocculant, it helps settle the fines out faster. And so they stay behind in our clay lined ponds. And then we don't have to use as much water. One thing that I did want to touch on briefly is the consistency between the two ordinances. There are a few differences between the Lucas ordinance and the Dunn County zoning ordinance. And I think Mark's comment about trying to maintain consistency was very true, because there are a few differences. So I'm finding that in working with Lucas, they've been really good to work with and very appreciative of Dunn County's zoning ordinance and trying to help maintain consistency throughout both of them. I will touch on blasting. I know that that Bob asked to touch on that. Typically, yeah, anywhere from 10 to 15 times per year we will blast. And to give you an idea, when the Gates Quarry first started back in 1997, we had a call list of about 10 people. And then over the years, we had other neighbors asked to be added to that list. And we had a lot of the neighbors that asked to be taken off the list. And some asked for seismographs, some asked for to be taken off the notification list, but to get a seismograph. So it's kind of an evolving living document, the notification list. And currently our call list is about 5 people. We also have 5 seismographs that we set out, and not all of the neighbors that get a seismograph get a call. So it's what has worked well for the neighbors so far. One thing though, the town of Lucas does have a blasting ordinance. So with that blasting ordinance, every year we have to map out our planned area of blasting. And then I have to make a radius map of everybody within a half a mile of that blast area. And those residents, in accordance with Lucas's ordinance, will be offered a building condition survey and a water tap test, and to be added to our notification list. So every year I measure that out. Now, many years in a row, that half-mile radius may not change. And if it does, it changes very slowly. Excuse me, because we move through this operation at a very slow pace. You know, maybe a half an acre to 3/4 or maybe an acre a year. So it moves very slow. But we're always making sure that that half-mile radius is maintained. And, you know, our door also is always open. If somebody outside that half-mile has concerns and they have questions and they want to be added to our notification list, we're always happy to do that. And we have done that many times. So we do that with the town of Lucas's ordinance. And the town of Lucas also requires us to give a 72-hour notice to residents on our call list and a 24-hour notice. And that will include the town board will also get notice. And I'm hoping that the board would consider maybe instead of a 2-week notice, which may be kind of difficult for us to manage, if we could add Dunn County to the 72 and the 24-hour notice. And the only reason I say that the 2-week notice for blasting might be kind of difficult is our operations are so weather dependent. And if we have multiple pieces of equipment moving to and from the different sites around the western part of the state. So if a drill breaks down up in Superior area and was scheduled to be to Gates in 3 days to start, and we've planned out our 2-week notice, and suddenly the drill breaks down and we can't get another one, that the 2 weeks might change by a few days. And then I'm worried I'll be making multiple calls saying, okay, it's really 2 weeks this time. But the 72-hour and the 24, I think we can definitely work with and be happy to add the county onto that. Regarding Bob's staff report, I want to make sure I cover everything. Air permits, stormwater permits. I did want to talk a little bit about our stormwater pollution prevention plans. All of our crushing equipment, in addition to air permits, has spill prevention plans. So there's a hierarchy of things that have to be done if there were a spill. We have spill equipment on our crushers. And we also have stormwater best management practices in place that make sure that the quarry stays internally drained so that there's not erosion leaving the site and there's not runoff going all over outside of the site there. That site is internally drained, and that is in accordance with our permit. The noise concern, that is a valid concern, and we're hoping that by maintaining the required 500-foot setback and storing hopefully something that the board and names would like to see, whether it's a berm or if it's fencing or vegetation, that will definitely help with the screening. In addition to that 500 feet, when we are crushing, we're not going to be able to get the crusher right up to that 500-foot setback. So I can envision at least being 700 feet away from their residence. And then there's additional screening on top of that. At that distance, I think noise can be kept to a lot better minimum. So I feel pretty confident about being able to control the noise. And as far as dust goes, all of our crushers do have fugitive dust control plans. We have spray bars on our equipment, so we are able to control our dust. We're required to control our dust through our air permits, through the Wisconsin DNR, and also by MSHA. For the health of our workers, we have to make sure that we control the dust. In addition, the entrance and exit at the Gates Quarry is paved, which also helps control dust at the site. And we do have a water truck that will go around and spray down the roads. And then we also have done calcium chloride applications at the site. And that's good usually, depending on traffic, anywhere from up to 2 to 3 months per application. So those mixtures of things have been really helpful for us for keeping the dust down. Not to mention the being inside of the quarry helps a lot. Something I didn't mention before I jumped into the staff report is the final floor elevation. I know that Bob had wanted me to touch on that. The existing quarry right now is about 70 feet deep. And the proposed quarry is going to be about the same. The existing quarry floor is approximately 1,110 feet. And that's what we're proposing for the expansion area as well. There is no reason for us to go any deeper. We may have to go a little deeper into the floor for our wash ponds if our high capacity well were approved, but that is about the elevation that we would stop at, and we have listed that on our reclamation plan. Let's see, back to Bob's staff report. Groundwater, like I said, we did have an extensive groundwater study done, and Bob's service is with me tonight if there are questions on that. Traffic. So we have a pretty standard season at the Gates Quarry with our traffic. You know, like right now at this time, we have about 5 trucks hauling at the Gates Quarry because we don't have as much business in the winter time. So that's probably about 30 trucks a day. But in the busier parts of the year, which is usually between April and October, because that's when all the local road construction is going on, the truck traffic will be a lot more, probably anywhere from 150 loads a day to up to, you know, a couple hundred loads a day. So we're glad to notify Dunn County Highway when we think it would be 50% more than that. We don't anticipate that it's going to be more than that, but it might be hard for us to try to manage counting trucks to try to determine when we've met that 50% increase. So I did want to make the board aware of some of that might be kind of hard for us to meet, to make sure we're giving the correct notifications. We have a good relationship with Dunn County Highway Department, so we're happy to keep them in the loop any way we can. Consider a condition restricting non-metallic mining operations to only construction aggregates. We would be in total agreement with that. We have no reason to mine anything out there other than construction aggregates. Bob, did I cover everything that I think?
Yes, I believe so, Candy. I guess I'd like to go back to this 50% increase. And I guess the thinking behind that isn't that on any given day that you're up and you're notifying the county on a regular basis. It would be that if it gets to bear and you're sustaining that kind of traffic and you anticipate that it's going to continue, then I think the county would need to be notified. But
okay.
I wouldn't be asking that on any given day that you count trucks and today it was greater and tomorrow it's not, and so you'd just be irritating the highway department notifying them, you know, day in day out. So it would be a sustained increase in volume or traffic.
Okay. And it did my explanation of why a 2-week notice for crushing and blasting might be a little difficult. Did that make sense?
I put something in just so that we had a placeholder, and obviously, you know, the conditions are going to be between you and the board, and so I would think that would be something that the board could certainly take into consideration.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Okay, does the board have any questions for Candy?
I do. Mark, Tim Lee now.
Yep, go ahead, Tim.
Okay, Candy, I've got a kind of a list here that I've been kind of jotting down as you've been speaking. But my concern is, you said you don't always wash the material after it's crushed. Can you give me a percentage of how much is washed and how much is not?
That is a very good question, Tim. I may have to ask our vice president to jump in for that question, more from an operational standpoint.
Okay. Can we get him sworn in?
Yep. Is he there?
Yeah,
Let me know.
Tony's here, Mark.
Okay, Tony, I need to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And then we need your name and an
Yep.
address.
Tony Tomaszek, Vice President of Matthew Construction, 920 10th Avenue North, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650.
Okay, go ahead.
So Tim, to answer your question, historically at the Gates Quarry, we have not washed any aggregates. We've done all that washing over at our Hughes Quarry, a couple miles to the east of Gates. But to better utilize the aggregates at the Gates Quarry, we're proposing to try to get a high cap well put in. So for example, at the Hughes Quarry, we probably wash at least 50% of the aggregate. And we take most of the base type aggregates out of the Gates Quarry. So if we move some of the washing over to the Gates Quarry, I would say we'd probably wash up to a third of the aggregates of what we currently produce at the Gates Quarry. And the rest would still be the road rocks and the breaker runs and the agricultural limes and those types of things. So.
All right. The second part of that question is, how often do you use the flocculants in this wash process? Or is it strictly just a water wash?
Typically, in this type of case, to save on pond size and to help our efficiency with water, we will use flocculants every time we wash. Now, again, the flocculants are regulated by the DNR. So we have a administration rate that we're allowed to use. Many times we're way below that dosing rate, if you will, that the DNR allows us to put in there. So again, that flocculant stays in the fines that are washed out of the limestone, and that typically stays in our wash ponds.
Okay, and so that will just basically settle there in those wash ponds.
Correct.
Okay. Are there, as the operation moves south in the property, will there be new ponds produced, or will the aggregate go to this wash area, so to speak?
Probably a little bit of both, Tim. I mean, initially we'll probably have the wash ponds in the existing Gates Quarry somewhere. And then as we get to the south end of the expansion, we'll more than likely move those ponds one time so that we can continue the reclamation of the existing Gates Quarry as we move south into the expansion area. So it's a yes and no answer that, yeah, we probably will move them one time once we're up and operating in the expansion.
So what is the schedule for reclamation of the existing Gates Quarry within the next couple of years or a decade from now?
We've actually done some reclamation in there already, and we'll continue to do that. Obviously, as we move into the expansion area, we'll need to get rid of some of the overburden that we take off. Some of it will be used for berms and things like that, but we will do ongoing reclamation as we move into the expansion area.
Okay, all right. Let me see. Let me get farther down on my list here. There was one item here that said groundwater modeling. I'm just no idea what that is. What is it, and why isn't it being done in this situation?
Tim, I think that would be a good question. Our hydrogeologist Bob Service would answer, if you wouldn't mind swearing him in, Mark?
Okay.
That's fine. Is he there? Let me know when he's there.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman. I don't believe I've got video at the moment. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't need a video. I just need a voice. So,
Okay, then, my name's
do you-
Bob Service, Mr. Chairman.
yeah, just a minute. I'll have to swear you in before you can speak. So do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do.
Okay, can you state your name and an address?
Yes, my name is Robert Service. I'm with Milestone Materials. Our address is 920 10th Avenue North, Onalaska, 54650.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Tim, to address your question about groundwater modeling, that is a common way to evaluate groundwater flow systems. Groundwater flow systems are just directions and depths that the groundwater table exists below the land surface in an area. So one way to do this is by looking at well records and measuring or recording the depth to water from each of those well records and plotting those on a map across the area of interest, and then drawing contours of water table elevation based on those well water depths. Which we did that as part of our groundwater study. But in addition to that, we used a computer model that allows us to predict that water level differently rather than contouring water levels in area wells. This is done by in a computer program inputting boundary conditions such as surface water bodies, aquifer base elevations, and aerial recharge to the groundwater flow system. And then that model can take that information and produce a contour map of the water table. And it can also do some valuable things with predicting directions of groundwater movement and rates of groundwater movement. So in addition to looking at area wells, our groundwater study also incorporated the use of groundwater flow models to get a more detailed look at the specific area beneath the proposed quarry expansion and what the groundwater is doing down there. And this was, again, to meet the town of Lucas and Dunn County's requirement for a hydrogeologic report.
Okay. Is the position of the high capacity, the proposed high capacity well, has that been determined yet?
That is not determined yet. It more than likely would be placed in the quarry floor in the area that's already been mined out. We wouldn't want to put that high capacity well in an area that would be mined out, because then we'd have to put a new well in after mining through that area. So we'd be limited to the existing footprint of the existing quarry, and more than likely, Candy or Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, that would more than likely go near the access ramp coming into the quarry.
Okay, so that position will be determined at a later date then.
That's correct, Tim. And the DNR has a lot of input into the location of that as well when we make our application.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed that reading the material also that there's a lot of responsibility for the foreman of the pit, so to speak, of the Gates pit. And if I may ask, who is that foreman and how long have they been in that position?
That's a good question, Tim. Actually, the area manager of the pit, his name is Kent Olsvig, and he's been with the company about 6 years. But it really is ultimately a team effort. So when Kent is going to be moving a crusher in, he sends out notice to me and other people so that we can make sure that he maintains all the required compliance. Now, in addition to Kent, when we're moving crushers and equipment in, each one of those has a foreman as well. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, so there's multiple foremen that are responsible, for example, with the dust control. So every foreman of every crushing plant has the same responsibility. So multiple people getting trained with those compliance measures.
All right, thank you. A couple more questions and I'm done. You can be relieved of that. How's that? The other question I wanted to ask, is there a, on the entrance of to the pit on County Q, is there a speed up lane for trucks if we're going to be handling that kind of truck traffic? And a fully loaded truck is pretty slow critter until it gets rolling.
Sure.
Is there an extra lane there?
There is currently not an extra lane, and that has proven to be fine since the quarry was permitted in 1997.
Okay. Although with the volume that you guys are talking about, between 100 and 200 trucks a day, potentially, might that be something that would be on the proposed list as something that might be needed?
Well, that is actually our current truck traffic. See, it varies throughout the year. So right now, for in March, we have about 30 loads a day. But historically, in the busy construction season, when we're busy delivering everywhere, that's when we see that increased capacity to 150 or more trucks a day. And then back, when the season's starting to wind down, then it goes back down to probably the 30 or the 40 trucks a day. So that's our current truck measurement.
Okay.
Even in the heat of the summer though, Tim, I mean, we have days that we only have 20 loads a day. Then we may run 2 days where we have 120 loads and all of a sudden a 200 load day. And then it goes back down to 50 loads a day. So even in the summertime, it's not every day 200 loads a day. It's varied all summer long, depending on the season. Then you'll get to the Labor Day weekend and nobody comes on Friday. So, I mean, you might as well close the gate. So, so it varies all year round, just like Candy said. Yes, we have a peak in the summer, but like I say, it's not 200 loads every day, all day. So,
Mr. Chair, if I could, please.
Yes, go ahead.
When we change speakers, if people could identify themselves just for the record, so that the court reporter can say whose comments were from who, would be very helpful. And I guess in terms of, so this is Bob Colson. I guess in terms of the acceleration deceleration lane, that would really be the call of the Dunn County Highway Department, and currently they have not requested or required that of Milestone. If it becomes necessary, then those negotiations would take place, and Dunn County Highway would be in charge of those discussions.
Okay, Tim, do you have more?
No, Mark, I'm done. Thank you for your patience.
I'm curious. I'm very familiar with the hydraulic studies. I was on the Chippewa County hydrology water study because our township borders Chippewa County, and when they did this for the sand mines over in Chippewa County, I'm curious. I mean, the U.S. Or the Wisconsin Geological Survey has that computer model, and what I'm curious of is that the groundwater is going to vary from 80 feet to 160 feet within that 54 acres. Is the hydrologist there?
Bob? Oh.
I don't know if we lost him. This is Tony Tomaszek. I'll try to answer that in Bob's absence. So the groundwater across this site, Mark, flows from northeast to southwest, basically across our property. And the groundwater table is not perfectly flat. It's at a gradient flowing down to the discharge point, a quarter mile west of the Gates Quarry. So yes, the groundwater table will be at a sloped angle across our property or the Gates property. Our quarry floor will be virtually level, but the groundwater table will be at an angle.
Really interesting. Does any of the board have any other questions?
This is Crystal Halverson. First, I have to say that I have another commitment at 7:30 where I am the speaker, so I can't stay past 7:30. I'm so sorry to say. We have a quorum without me, right, Bob?
Correct.
Okay. I have one question that I wonder if Gene is Gene still on? Yeah, is he Gene?
Yeah, I'm just,
Are you
I
there?
had to unmute. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
great.
here.
I just was wondering if you could speak to whether or not you've heard anything new on this call tonight, if there's anything that you feel has come up tonight in conversation that is like stricter than the ordinance that you have allows, and also please whether your ordinance speaks to high capacity wells.
Okay, yeah. So this is Gene Ringer, Chair, Town of Lucas. And I'll take the last question first. And no, I mean, we really have the DNR doesn't ask us anything about high capacity wells, which, I mean, that's just the way it is. So we haven't, I don't spend a whole lot of time on something that I can't influence one way or another on behalf of our constituents. In terms of a couple things that I did hear, and first of all, I appreciate that the Board of Adjustment will consider not granting the permit until we have a working agreement with the Milestone Company. That will help us. I also wanted to comment is, I know Candy mentioned the boundary security plan, and they put together a wonderful looking plan. It's great, as it, and as I indicated before, their groundwater monitoring program was really good. We added a couple extra wells on there because we had our hydrologist review their program and noted that they needed a couple more wells to better assess the potential changes. And then the other point is terms of time of operation, and we had proposed to match the county's hours of operation that it's in their in your ordinance, and that included the 7 to 5 p.m. during standard time, and that was mostly because after 5 p.m. during standard time it's dark, and so that their the program as proposed by Milestone is not to have extra light except for, should we say, emergency situations. And so our thinking was, well, if you're not going to have lighting and it's dark, then why have that as days of open operation? We also have in the agreement plan, as is in our ordinance, is that if there are situations that require additional times of operations, like if they're providing material to the I-94 project and they want to run the clock, they just need to present that to the board for their consideration, and if in most circumstances that would be granted. I mean, if under emergency sorts of circumstances. So that's most of really. I think that that's all I've got to say at this point. So thank you for the opportunity to make those extra comments.
Okay, thank you. Does any other board member have any questions? No, I don't hear any.
No.
If, does the applicant have any other comment that they would like to make?
I don't have any more. Thank you, Mark.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, if I might.
okay, Bob.
First of all, Crystal, when you leave, could you just please let us know so that we could note that in the records that you're leaving the meeting, and so.
Yeah, and I'm really sorry about that.
That's okay.
It's just a commitment I can't change, but I do want to say that I like the idea. This is just for my bandmates here. I don't want to rush the proceedings in the next 7 minutes just because of me. I really do like the idea of honoring the really good work that this particular township has done and recognizing that they've really done a lot of due diligence. And I think this idea of not making a lot of extra specifications that might have already been organized maybe like a little bit more properly is a good idea from my perspective, although I may not get a vote. And I will let you know when I'm leaving.
Great, thank you. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I would, there's a couple things that came up during the discussion, and one of them was with the flocculent ponds, and those ponds will be lined with clay. I understand. I guess I'd be curious a couple things. One, as to the size in terms of volume of water, or maybe cubic yards of each pond, and then also they mentioned that they will be moving the pond as the mine progresses southerly. Is there an abandonment process to this pond, and what happens to the residue of flocculants that are in the bottom of that pond?
Candy, do you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Bob. If our Bob Service is back on the call, he might be able to answer that flocculent question. I will start without him if he's fallen off the call.
I'm on the call, by the way, Candy.
Oh, super, super.
This is Bob, sir. And I could speak to maybe both of those questions.
Thanks, Bob.
I believe the first question was the construction of the ponds. And we submitted a drawing to the town of Lucas with our proposed pond designs. And that proposed pond design shows ponds that are roughly 150 feet long, 3 of them, and 50 feet wide and 12 feet deep. With a 12-inch or a 2-inch clay liner at the base. So each of those 3 ponds would hold approximately 1/3 of a million gallons of water with those dimensions. So those 3 combined would hold 1 million gallons of water. And then there is a 4th pond, which is just a little bit larger, which is again 50 feet wide, 12 feet deep, but this one is 200 feet long. And that would have just about 450,000 gallons of water. So you're looking at total pond capacity of around 1.5 million gallons.
As a follow-up this is Bob Colson. So as a follow-up, does that mean that as the mine progresses, that capacity then would be moved? That 1 million gallons would then move with the mine as it moves through time?
That could be done. And all that takes is excavating that capacity, bringing another clay liner in, and switching the pump outlet to discharge into those, or the well outlet to discharge into the new settling pond location.
Are those ponds part of the reclamation plan, or where do they get noted in terms of where they're going to be and how you're going to move through time with those ponds?
This is Candy Anderson. Currently the ponds are not part of our reclamation plan. But it's really gonna depend how fast the quarry moves, how much product we can move. That's gonna determine how fast those ponds will move. It's also gonna determine where the DNR might give us approval to put the well. That will help determine the location of the ponds.
Okay, thank you. And then could you speak to what happens when you close out the ponds to the stuff that has been deposited in the ponds?
I'll let Bob Service talk about that one.
Yes, sir. This is Bob Service again. The product that we use as our flocculant at this site is called Hydrofloc 5225. That is a polyacrylamide anionic flocculant. It's approved by the DNR. We're approved at an application rate of 13.7 milliliters per liter. And we only use about 6 milliliters per liter in our actual dosing at our site. So we use about half as much as we're approved to use, and that's been enough to get the job done at our limestone quarries. When we introduced that flocculant at those rates, the flocculant, the polyacrylamide, which is the active ingredient in the flocculant, actually bonds or sorbs to the sediment particles or the fines that we're trying to remove from suspension, and those settle out in the bottom of the pond. So those stick with the sediment particles and do not leach into groundwater. There is a very minor component. It's a residual in these polyacrylamide flocculant products that's not polyacrylamide, but it's just the acrylamide not bound into polyacrylamide chains. So the DNR and the EPA are aware that polyacrylamide products do contain some amount of residual acrylamide in them, and that residual acrylamide behaves differently than the polyacrylamide. It does not bond to the particles. It can flow with the water, and therefore the DNR and the EPA limit the amount of residual acrylamide that is able to be contained in polyacrylamide products. And we've checked with our manufacturers to ensure that they are doing quality control testing to ensure that their residual acrylamide levels are below the EPA and DNR limits, which we have verified that they're well below those. But again, the acrylamide is able to move with the groundwater, but we do know that based on the residual concentrations that are allowed in our products and the degradation rate of that acrylamide, and also the internally drained construction of the quarry, meaning that we're not letting any rainwater or surface water runoff drain outside of the property. We know that containment of our pond fines will not allow for acrylamide to flow to surface waters before it's able to degrade in the ground on site.
Hey, Bob, this is Tony Tomaszek. Also, to add on to that, we're regulated by the NR 135, the DNR Reclamation Program, which obviously Dunn County administers. And the NR 135 does allow us to use our pond fines in our reclamation. So we do occasionally dig our ponds out and use some of the fines that are in the ponds for reclamation. And they will include the polyacrylamide like Bob talks about.
Great, thank you.
I gotta go.
Okay, for the record, Krista Halverson is leaving the meeting.
Bye.
Thank you, Crystal.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions?
No.
I think we've covered it quite well. The before we go to the, kind of go to the reclamation, the public information part of this hearing, Bob, do you have, just to kind of complete the discussion here, I know Candy is, you have a 72-hour, Candy would prefer a 72-hour notice on blasting notification, and you know, in our review, you know, you asked for 2 weeks. 72 hours okay with you, Bob?
I think so, but I'd like to hold those discussions at the time that maybe the board is deliberating, rather than fragment those discussions and then come and go. So if you want to hold that
Yeah.
conversation for when it's deliberation time, because that would be a point of deliberation. But generally speaking, I don't think there's going to be an issue. But I'd prefer that be part of the deliberations, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, then everybody can hold on here. We're going to go to the public information hearing on the reclamation plan for the Gates mine.
Okay.
Is land conservation available?
They are. I see them activating their cameras now, and so Chase Cummings, who is the new head of the Land and Water Conservation Department, is here, and Amanda Hansen, one of the technicians that works exclusively on mines and mining operations. They are both here. So with that, I'm going to have both of you introduce yourselves for the records, and then just kind of an overview, and then I just want to remind the board that this is a public informational piece, and this is not part of your deliberation, but there may be some information that they present that you may find interesting, and we'll see if that's really appropriate for this permit, or if it really stays with the reclamation. And so with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Cummings.
Bob, do I need to swear them in?
No, you do not. They're staff.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chase Cummings. I'm the new county conservationist here for the Dunn County Land and Water Conservation Division. And I'm here to help answer any questions regarding the purpose of the informational hearing regarding reclamation. But I'm going to turn it over to Amanda Hansen. She's been a long time non-metallic mine reclamation ordinance administrator for the county. And I'll let her follow up here with you regarding the authorities and the intent of this point of the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Chase. As Chase said, I'm Amanda Hansen with Dunn County Land and Water Conservation. I've been working with reclamation here in Dunn County for quite a few years. Tonight, thank you, Board of Adjustment, for allowing us to have a dual meeting. The purpose in that is not only for the benefit of staff and the applicant, but also for the benefit of the public, so that they have one meeting to attend to ask any informational questions at. Chase has asked me to go through a few things, and I'm going to try and keep it as short and sweet as possible, since we've noticed the sun has set and our meeting's getting a bit lengthy. We do have a reclamation ordinance here in Dunn County. Our first ordinance came through about in the early 2000s. That is based off of NR 135, which is a requirement of the Wisconsin DNR. And basically within there, they ask for regulatory authority, which typically relies on the counties of the state of Wisconsin. Now, other municipalities can also be a regulatory authority, but they need to have a reclamation ordinance that follows NR 135. So far in Dunn County, the only regulatory authority is Dunn County. We do not have any other municipalities that hold that ordinance. So before us, we have a permit modification. Gates Quarry is an existing quarry. It was an existing quarry when the county's ordinance went into effect in the early 2000s, and we've been presenting with a permit modification. So tonight, we'll discuss what's in that modification. Everything that's existing on the site and the existing reclamation plan will stay in place as it is at the moment until a decision is made on that permit modification. As a regulatory authority, we have the right to approve the modification, to approve with conditions, or to deny. That decision will not be made here tonight. The purpose of this meeting tonight is for the public to weigh in on this permit modification as it relates to reclamation. Basically, most of you have spent a great deal of time reading this application. You've heard about the application tonight from several people. So I don't intend to get into too much detail as far as reclamation is concerned, but if there is something that comes up, please let us know. From here, Candy, knowing how long this meeting has been, I was wondering if you could give a short overview of your reclamation plan. If you want, it could even be 5 minutes, whatever length you feel is appropriate. A few topics that we'd look for you to cover would be the high walls and the 3-to-1 slopes, the seeding, the end land use, and financial assurance. And if you feel anything else should be added to that, go ahead. And then after that, we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Amanda. This is Candy Anderson, Milestone Materials. And I will try to touch on things that Amanda has talked about. So right now, we have approximately 39,000 cubic yards of topsoil and about 220,000 cubic yards of overburden stored at the Gates Quarry. And that is stored out there in berms as setbacks. And the intent of that topsoil and overburden is to put back down for reclamation. Now that's something that is part of the existing quarry. That's something that will continue as the existing quarry moves south. We'll take off our topsoil and we'll take off our overburden or the clay on top. That'll be stored in our setbacks as berms. And then when the time comes to reclaim, that's put back down. High walls, excuse me. There will be areas of high walls at the Gates Quarry. And high walls are basically the wall of limestone that is left when we're done mining. We are proposing with this reclamation plan to leave some areas as high walls. But in the event that we were even going to propose that, we would have to get an engineering study done to certify them that they are stable, that they are safe. If they cannot be certified as stable and safe, then the walls have got to be blasted down and covered with topsoil and overburden. Excuse me.
Candy, can I interrupt Bob Colson here? Could you just maybe define what a high wall is, please?
Yes, I tried to. I didn't do a very good job. A high wall is basically a wall of limestone that is left. When I talked earlier during the operations part of our permit application, I said that the quarry was going to be anywhere from 30 to 70 feet deep. So it's essentially a high wall is the side of the quarry that is left when we're done mining. So,
is it steeper than a 3-to-1?
Yes, it is steeper than a 3-to-1. So what we have to do upon reclamation, excuse me, is we have to certify those walls as stable. We have to put overburden up against the slopes of those walls. If we cannot certify those walls as stable, safe, they have to be blasted down and brought to a 3-to-1 slope. So ultimately, Dunn County Land Conservation is going to decide if the reclamation is has met the standards of the ordinance and our reclamation plan. And so safety is a big part of that reclamation plan and that final reclamation, which is also addressed in our boundary and security plan to the town of Lucas. We've got an existing site security plan for while we're operating, and then we have another security plan with fencing for after we're done. So all of the topsoil and overburden, once we're ready to do reclamation, is put back down on the site. The site is seeded with a DOT 20 mix, and silt fence and other best management practices to help control erosion are put in place until vegetation is established. Our reclamation plan did require us to claim a post-mining land use when we did the original plan, and that was partial rock outcrop and also a pasture area. So that is what we're proposing for this modification, is essentially the same thing. So you're looking at a 70% vegetation success rate is what we have proposed in our plan. So the site has got to be fully vegetated. There's got to be no erosion present, and we have to have met the standards of our plan in order to receive our financial assurance back. Currently, we have a reclamation bond with Dunn County Land Conservation. NR 135 requires all operators to put financial assurance forth to the county, the regulatory authority, in the event the operator were to default or leave as responsible operator. Then the county would have the money to go in and reclaim the site in accordance with the reclamation plan. So currently, for every open acre, you have to have financial assurance. We have a bond in the amount of $343,000 for the reclamation of the existing quarry. And that's at about a reclamation cost of $9,527 per acre. So I've revised that financial assurance up to approximately $17,000 an acre, because as time wears on, things get more expensive and we have to look at what it would cost to hire somebody to do the reclamation. So I'm proposing with the modification to increase our per acre bond amount from $9,500 to $17,200. Long-term safety of the site, I touched on that briefly. We will be required to provide safety, security of the site upon reclamation, which will include fencing and any place we need to have boulders or anything else to make sure that the site is secure.
Amanda, are you there?
Yep, I sure am.
Yep. Yeah, I think she covered your bases.
She sure did. Thank you very much. So that's a slight overview. Now, of course, beginning here, Board of Adjustment, Bob Coulson has talked a lot about zoning. We've kind of moved a little bit into reclamation, where the reclamation permit does deal with the mining site while it's in operation, but really the true focus of reclamation is the reclaiming of the site and the post-mining land use. So when it comes to that, there are certain things that we may not be able to address in reclamation that Board of Adjustment or zoning may be able to. With that being said, I guess, do we happen to have any questions or comments at this time for this public informational meeting portion of the meeting due to reclamation?
Amanda, just going on your statement, you said that the Board of Adjustment may be able to address things that the reclamation or the county can't address. Do you have specific information concerning that?
Sure, I sure do. And this comes right out of the state statutes. So I will just read it to you if you don't mind a moment or two of your time. Basically, it's included in a note, and it says informational hearings are limited to reclamation of the non-metallic mining site. Regulatory authority staff conducting the hearings need to make it clear that the hearings or our portion of the hearing may not cover non-reclamation matters because they're beyond the scope of NR 135 reclamation. Non-reclamation matters are those related to zoning or subject to other local authority. So in that part there, we may also consider the town and their ordinances or rules that they have as a local authority. These matters may include, but are not limited to, traffic, setbacks, blasting, dewatering, hours of operation, noise, or dust control, or the question of whether to use the land for mining.
Okay,
And that's the end of the state statute in that section.
Yeah, a lot of that we're covering, that's what we're covering tonight, so. Is anybody, are you, as you're part of the public information hearing, Amanda, are you at the close?
If there's no one that has any discussion or comments, yes, we would be at a point where we would close.
Does the board have any questions, or does Milestone have any questions concerning or for Amanda?
This is Candy Anderson. I don't have any questions.
Anybody on the board?
I have none. Tim Lee now.
Jill Noreen, I have none.
Barbara Lyon, I have none.
Okay, then I guess we will move on to deliberation and consideration for action by the board.
I have on the screen, Mr. Chair, before you get into deliberations, at least what staff had put together in terms of recommendations, and I don't know that there is anything that I really came across during the discussion that I think is in addition to our recommendations, but that does not mean that you folks haven't. So with that, I can scroll up or down on this, or your deliberation. I can follow the discussion, but I'll turn it over to the group for discussion and deliberation.
Okay. I would, where do I start?
Good question.
I guess my question here to where to start. I don't think that it's necessary that we duplicate the township's effort, or to require Milestone to duplicate it to us. Maybe. So, Jean, are you there? Is Jean the chairman for Lucas there?
Yeah, I was muted. So,
yep. Can I, as we scroll through this, Jean, could you, can you see, you can see the screen? Do you have the recommendations screen up now that Bob has?
I do.
Bob, if you could just scroll down here, the noise and vibration, I'm assuming that you have that in your ordinance.
I have to look again with specifically with respect to the noise and vibration, because
before we go, if I could just interject one thing, I think that it's important to understand that the county has some authority and some obligation towards noise and vibrations, and I think that we don't want to lessen that by saying, well, we're just going to defer only to what the town is saying. I don't think that the issues that are listed in staff's recommendations, even if they are duplicate, that they're going to be exact duplicates of what the town is going to require. I think what is really important is to through your deliberations and maybe recommendation is to acknowledge that the town is not finished, and that the applicant and the town are in negotiations, and that that we would hold our permit until such time that the town has issued its permit. And there may be some overlap, but I think that's okay. But I think that the stuff that we have listed in here, I think are issues that at least as a zoning administrator, I believe probably need to have at least the board to say, no, we don't want to do that, or yeah, we want to do that, rather than go through and say, is the town going to take care of this as well? So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Ringer, the town chair.
Hey, again, this is Gene Ringer with the town of Lucas. And much of the noise issues that was presented by our community members actually involved the operations of the trucks on the hills in the area, in the procedure called jake braking. And again, Milestone has addressed those concerns and acknowledged the what's laid out in the ordinance, and so that's part of the proposed agreement, which, and with respect to the crushing operations in the discussions, we acknowledge the need for the crushing operations. And since the operations without special permission would be done during daylight times. So for most people, obviously we got people that work 24, during all different shifts. And so some people need to sleep during the day. But for most of the time, our thinking on the crushing was that it would happen during the daylight time and happened for a limited time period. And it hasn't been a major issue with the community members during this past 20 years. So we didn't have a whole lot of concern with respect to that.
Okay, maybe a better way for me to proceed would be to have us go through it, Gene, and if you have a comment on what we're discussing, then you come in.
That's most kind of you to let me do that.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to proceed. So on the noise and vibration, I think Candy addressed the distance from that the crusher would be from a residence. The setbacks are 500 feet and the crusher would be at the bottom of the pit. So she estimated that the crusher is going to probably be about 700 feet from any residence. There's only really one residence involved that's in the close within that 500 foot setback. I think this is where the 72-hour notice, Candy hoped that we would consider that versus the 2-week notice that was in our staff report. Does the board have any comments on that or any discussion concerning that?
I would be in favor of the 72-hour waiting period or notification period. Tim Lee now on the board.
Jill Nareen, I agree that the 72-hour makes more sense than 2 weeks ahead of time to do your planning.
Okay, I would concur with that. So I think when we go through this, the 72-hour notice, I think, is adequate for the county, and I suspect it's adequate for the town board of Lucas as well. And I think the minimum distance, I think you know, they're in there, and the minimum distance, it's not gonna be any closer to 500 feet, and it's gonna probably be greater than that, like I said, 700 feet. I don't know. I guess the board, does anybody on the board thinks that we need to specify a distance? Given that there is a 500-foot setback already.
This is Jill Noreen. Knowing where, I'm not sure how to pronounce the neighbor's property is, and how the hill goes immediately down very shortly. I mean, I think the 500 feet probably makes sense.
Is adequate?
Yes, and then the crushing is going to be at the bottom of the hill, not right in back of their house. I mean, it's going to be noisy, but they're already used to dealing with living right next to
it.
Yeah.
Um,
And they don't have animals. I mean, you know, it's not like they have cows or that are or horses.
yeah, does the what about they're talking I mean, and I'm just reading through the noise and vibration section here. The indicated the approximate start and stop of the blasting activities, that would be noisy as well. I know I do know that I'm right next to the frac sand mines in Chippewa County, and I know a lot of those ordinance kind of put in a certain time of day. I think generally it was like when they blasted, they did. In Canada, you could probably speak to this. They generally blasted at noon, the same time every time they blasted, or something in that nature. So it was consistent, and I think if I'm right, they only needed to blast. They only did one blast a day. It wasn't like there were multiple blasting done on the same day. Is that accurate, Candy?
Thanks, Mark. This is Candy Anderson. Our blasting schedule is a little different than what the frac sand industry had. So, you know, being that we're there to fill orders, we'll typically try to blast anywhere between, I believe, and it's in Lucas's ordinance. I just can't think of what the hours are right now. It's like a time frame between 11 and 3 or something like that. And for us, it's a little hard to do it at the same time just because we're hiring third-party licensed blasters. And so they have to finish up project that they're at, hope that it's good weather, and then get down to where we are, hope that we've got all of our holes drilled by then, and then they start loading the shot. And it's all dependent if we run into clay seams, again, weather, equipment functioning properly. They have to make sure that the seismographs are all working properly. So we like to give a 3 or 4 hour range of time when they're going to blast. So that hopefully also will explain why a 2-week notice for blasting would be a little difficult, because there's so many variables with equipment and with people and long distances. And the same goes with the crushing too. The crushing and a 2-week notice will be very hard for us to meet. And I just want the board to be aware of that the crushers move around so frequently and they're breaking down, and I just don't want to have it where I'm calling so often that everybody's so darn sick of me. They're sick of
you I have a question on the crushers because these two are kind of linked together as far as we're talking.
Yeah.
Such, on the crushing, does the, when you bring a crusher in, how long that crusher is usually in the mine for like 4 to 6 weeks at a time?
It can be.
Are they crushing every day then?
Yes, they typically are crushing every day. Fridays, they tend to like to get done a little early. We don't operate on holidays, and they will operate on a Saturday if there's a big deadline to do.
Is there I guess I'm kind of familiar with them, but not real familiar with them. How much noise do they generate? I mean, the town, Gene from the town said that they really haven't had complaints about the crushing as far as the noise. Is this an item that we should be more concerned about?
I don't get a lot of complaints with noise. You know, we have done some noise studies at some of our crushing locations, and the farther away you move from the plant, the softer it gets. The berms and being down in the hole really make a big difference from the noise. You know, if you're standing right next to it, you most certainly definitely have to wear hearing protection. It's quite noisy, but by the time you're getting 500 feet away, you might hear it, you know, depending on where the wind is blowing, but it isn't probably gonna be any more than like a conversation or dishwasher. You know, it's more of a hummy background thing, kind of like if you're by the interstate. If you live off the interstate and you can see the interstate from a distance, you can hear it.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Does the I guess on the start and stop dates, I mean, they'd want notice on when that is, and I would assume that you don't crush 24 hours a day. Then do the crushers go by the 7 to 7 or whatever, 7 to 5 or whatever those hours are?
That's right, Mark. It's still Candy Anderson.
Yep.
Yeah, the crusher does not crush 24 hours a day. They're portable. So that crusher, there's multiple ones that come in, and I'm maybe over explaining this, but I'm trying to help explain why 2 weeks is a little difficult. It might be up in Ashland and crushing rocks to fill orders, and all of a sudden Ashland, and this has happened up there, has had some awful flooding, and all of a sudden there's an emergency up there and that crusher can't get out, or it's got to stay. So all of a sudden now we have to scramble and find another one to fill our orders at Gates. And then now I'm not accurate on my 2 week notice for crushing. But when the crushers do get in there and they get all set up, they will run in the 7 to 7 hours or the 7 to 3 on Saturdays. And a lot of times, unless there's a big order, they won't run on Saturdays. But it's nice to have that option if they needed to. Every once in a while, maintenance is done outside of the operations hours, but maintenance is a quiet activity. You know, if it's welding or whatnot, but the crusher shuts down when the hours are done for the expansion area.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, this is Bob Colson. So Candy, you know, those dates were placeholders at best. And so what would be a reasonable expectation on your end as to what would be a reasonable notice time?
Oh, for a crusher.
They talked about the crusher already as 72 hours, and now we're down to the blasting.
Oh, actually, the 72 hours and the 24 hours would be for the blasting.
Okay.
That's per the Lucas blasting ordinance.
Yep.
The crusher is, as far as giving a notice, a 2 week notice would be difficult for the crusher. I could probably, I think I want to ask if this is okay, if I can call a lifeline. Is that what that game show? I'd like to call Tony Tomaszek for a lifeline.
Tony, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. This is Tony Tomaszek again. Well, for example, with the state of Wisconsin, every year we have to annually notify them of all of our crushers that are going to begin operating in the state. Now, that's an annual notification. So, I mean, Candy could give the county notification that we're anticipating we're going to start crushing in the Gates Quarry in March. And then when the actual crusher moves in, before the crushing activity would start, Candy could notify the county and say, the crusher is set up at Gates. It will begin operation on March 27th. So it would be a two-pronged notification, if you will, an annual notification that we're going to have a crusher in the quarry. And then before we begin operations, we would notify the county that we're about to begin. Something to that effect, which is virtually what we do with the state.
Yeah, I think that's, I guess, as I'm listening, I don't think that the crusher, I don't think is going to be a noise problem. So it's not going to be, I think that type of notification is probably appropriate. Does the board have any opinion?
Mark, this is Jill Noreen.
Yep.
I agree with the statement you just said. It makes sense that it doesn't sound like it's really that big of a noise issue, as especially if state already has a regulation on it.
Well, yeah, they don't have a regulation. They just have a notice, but
Yeah, just have to have a notice, yeah.
But as far as
as
far as dealing with the noise, it doesn't sound like the township has had. I mean, this quarry's been there for 25 years.
Yeah.
Or approximately 25 years, and the people haven't necessarily complained about the noise from the crusher. They've been more concerned with the trucks, and I know in some of the other, and I don't know if they're dumping trucks, but I know, and the hours of operations are different. I know in the sand mines over here, the people really complained about the vibrators on the trucks if it got to be in the evening, because so that was more of an issue. But so I guess I think that a notice of the type that Tony suggested, Bob, would be appropriate, and just to let you know. I think it's an annual notice that, yeah, we're going to be crushing, and the other notice would simply come that say that our crushers are in place and we're going to start. Beyond that, I don't think it's a noise issue. And so, but I think if it happens to become a noise issue, it's probably good to have the notification if we do get a complaint. And then for the blasting, I think the 72-hour notice would seem to be appropriate. And I think that if Gene, if I get all the names right here, if Gene is here, I guess I would. It's not necessary, but it would be nice if we were in the same line as the township on this one, as far as the hours. If it's 11 till 3, I don't see that's a problem. But I don't know exactly how these different ordinances are going to interact with each other. That's what I'm wondering. So I don't want to. The township is right there, and so I'd like to be less restrictive than the township if we do something. If we do put an hours on it, because that if the township wants to be more restrictive, then, because their people they're living there, so I don't necessarily have a problem. I know Candy suggested 11 till 3 for the blasting, and I'd like to have a kind of congruent, so there is some streamlining, so we aren't overdoing it here. Candy, do you have something to say? You're muted.
Thanks, Mark. This is
Yep.
Candy Anderson. Those hours that I pointed out, actually, I just found what Lucas's hours are in their
Yeah.
blasting ordinance. And blasting is allowed between 9 AM and 4 PM, Monday through Fridays. No holidays, unless there is an emergency that would require a blast to be after 4 o'clock. So those are the conditions we're currently complying with Lucas's blasting ordinance. So it would be nice if we could keep with what has been working and is
Yeah.
regulated.
Well, that's the information that I'm trying to bring out, so when we're discussing this, so so I think we've covered this section of the noise as far as the notification for the blasting or for the grinding or for the crushing, and we've also came to the agreement that a 72-hour notice for the blasting is acceptable, and the hours are I think the hours, if it's good with the town, I think it should be good with our board unless there's dissent. So we have that part hammered out. The groundwater, if anybody disagrees with me, just speak it right up. So because we need to keep going, otherwise we're going to be.
Let's keep going.
The groundwater consideration, where the applicant shall maintain a reasonable distance and stuff from the groundwater, I think that has been addressed. And I think the high capacity well, that's going to be state regulated. And I think we can put in our motion, or it's one of the guidelines that there will be monitoring wells, and I think the town will decide where they are. Like I said, they're the ones that live there and are dealing with this directly, and so I don't know. I think we just put in our motion that monitoring wells will be installed.
Mr. Chair, if you would, I think if the county is going to require monitoring wells, and I think that we need to be very specific, because if the town is doing them on their own, that's for their ordinance. And so rather than say, well, monitoring wells and then just move on, I think that would be that, if the county is going to require some, we need to know how many and where. Otherwise, this sentence or this condition was really aimed at if you have to abandon those things, that they get abandoned properly. And so we weren't looking to do anything in addition to. We're just making sure that if wells, high capacity wells are permitted, if there are any other domestic or monitoring wells, that when those things have run their course, that they become abandoned property, because those are conduits to the groundwater.
Okay. So our motion should include that the wells, if there are wells, and we've had testimony that there will be wells, but if there are wells, that they be abandoned according to I don't know if you'd say code or or
the guidelines,
according to the state guidelines. And I don't know, because of the testimony, I mean, we're 80 feet from the groundwater and 160 feet from the groundwater. I don't even know that it would be reasonable for us to put a groundwater stipulation in there, other than to say that they don't go into the groundwater. Is that what we think, Bob, or?
It's up to the board. They've said, 80 feet. And so if you wanted to be, that's about where they're at. And, so you keep it around, maybe be a little conservative and say 70 or 60 feet. They're not going to, that's a 20-foot difference, and they're certainly not going to do that. But I think it would be important to keep a distance just for somebody in the future. I can tell you that the more specificity that you provide in these things for somebody coming after us is really, really important. So
I think we could just specify they won't be any closer to groundwater than 70 feet, and that should fit their guideline. I'm going to move on unless you don't think I've covered that appropriately. But the traffic,
think that's fine, Mark.
What's that?
Tim Lean out here. I think that's fine. I think we can move on. That 70 foot figure is I'm amendable to that.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
The traffic, I'm not sure. I think this has been discussed, and I think Dunn County Highway is probably addressed this. And I think we could put in as a suggestion, and as Candy has said, it's hard, the county, I don't know how you want to state this, but the county doesn't want to be notified of a 50% increase in traffic unless it's sustained. They don't care if it's 50% higher one day compared to the next day, but if it's going to be there for 2 weeks or 3 weeks with highway or something like that, then the county, Dunn County may, I think that the motion should probably say if there's a 50% increase, and I don't know what would be a sustained level as far as a time frame, but I'm thinking, I'm not sure that a week is a long enough time. I think if it's going to be sustained for maybe 2 weeks.
I was thinking, Mr. Chair, this is Bob Colson, that, that over time, if the economy changes and right now they're saying, that there's, 30 trips a day or something. And if they find that, on an annual basis, that they're up to 60 trips a day, I think it's, sustained would be a long-term thing, maybe on an annual basis. And that we're not looking at a week or a month, but an annual basis.
Yeah. So we should have in our motion that they notify the county if there's a 50% increase. Basically, if the business increases by 50%, and because that's what it would amount to
on an annual basis.
Yeah. So, because we don't want to be notified, the county doesn't want to get a day, and that'd be ridiculous. So
yeah.
But if there is a sustained traffic pattern, then your turnout lane, Tim, the county might want to do that. I don't know if there's any intersections or whatever there, but if they get sustained traffic continuous, even a stoplight or something like that, or some other traffic thing might, I don't know.
That'd be up to the county. Yeah, that'd be up to the highway department. And so I think
up to the highway department. So
if it's a sustained more than 50% on an annual basis, they just notify the highway department, and then those discussions can take place, whatever they will be.
Yeah. Okay. So then we're going to, we can just include the motion that this is for construction aggregate only. That covers that one. Mm-hmm. The reclamation, I guess, does somebody have a comment on reclamation? We've kind of had an informational meeting on the reclamation. I think that part of it, and from what Amanda read in the statute, as far as a side note, a lot of those things are covered in the ordinance or in some of these things already.
Mark,
and yeah, go ahead, Jill.
this is Jill. My understanding was that we got the information on the reclamation as, as our information, but it is not part of whether or not we approve this or don't approve it. Am I
Yep.
understanding that correctly?
Correct.
So,
This piece, this is Bob Colson. This piece is only recognizing that the boards, assuming that you approve, that your approval, conditional approval will be well before the reclamation plan has been adopted. And this just says that we will hold that permit until that permit has been negotiated and is in place. It just seems reasonable that gives land conservation the opportunity to vet this and the applicant to go through the process with land conservation, knowing that they have approval from the BOA.
okay. Then I think that we're through this, right, Bob?
Well, and then the same thing holds true for the town's permitting process, that we acknowledge the town's processes, and that we will again hold issuing our permit until those negotiations and those plans are in place.
Yep. So,
Yes.
yeah, and that'd be the same for the state permits, and I assume, they're getting the state permits annually for operating anyway, so, but we can put that in there, that they just make sure they put in our motion that all the permits necessary from the state are up to date, or whatever you want to say in there. So
those would be two separate items. I think we want to acknowledge the town specifically in a motion or a recommendation or a condition, and then another condition that says that all other permits are required. So
I think for the I'm going to try to put Tim, do you have things put together so you could make a motion, or Jill, or anybody?
Oh, this is tough. Tim, I'm turning it to you.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion here and I'll try to put it together. And if I miss something, please speak up.
We'll pipe in as needed. How's that?
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we approve the special exception for Milestone Materials to operate and for the expansion, and that the following conditions be met. That they give a 72-hour notice to the county for a blast notification.
and the town, please, Mr. Chair,
And the town.
and the neighbors.
Yep. And that the blasting can occur between 9 and 4, Monday through Friday, no holidays.
Crushing also?
Is what?
Crushing also?
Yeah, and the same is true, and the crushing would give an annual notification and a date to the county and to the town, notification that the crusher is in place and we'll start crushing. Like I said, noise hasn't been an issue with that, so but that notification would notify if there is a complaint, it would notify the county and the town when the crushing started, so whether that was an issue. I also moved that one of the conditions would be that the wells, any wells that are on site, when their use is discontinued, that they be closed according to the state protocol. And along with that, that they not mine closer than 70 feet from the groundwater table. And then if there happens to be a 50% or an expected 50% annual increase in traffic, that they notify the county or the county transportation, the highway department. Because there may, if it increases a lot, there might need to be some mitigation to deal with it. And lastly, I'm trying to think what the
Just, this is Tim,
and that-
Mark.
and that-
Help.
Go ahead, Tim.
All right, just basically this, putting a notice on this. This is strictly a non-metallic mining operation for the, and its use is only for construction aggregates.
Yep. That would be included, and the reclamation plan, the permit will be held until the reclamation plan with the county is complete. And that all other permits from the state are acquired.
And then please acknowledge the one with the town specifically.
Oh, yep. And then also that and Gene, as long as you're on this part of this, when you well, either you or Candy, I guess, could notify the town or the county when your agreement is complete. So because that'll be part of the motion that the permit will be held until that's in place. So
This is Gene, and I'll be sure to do that. And do you want that in writing or email or telephone call?
Writing,
Or all
please.
of the above?
It can be all the above, but I need it specifically in writing.
Very good.
So
We'll be done.
Well, that completes the motion. It's kind of lengthy with the conditions, but it's for approval. Is there a second to that motion?
Mark, I'll second it. Tim Lenow.
Is there any further discussion by the board?
No.
I think we've come.
No. Call for the question.
I don't usually do this. Is there any because this is board deliberation, Gene, do you have any additional thing from the town?
Did you want to address the hours of operation?
Well, I have it down here. I guess from other things that we have done, 7 to 7 is in what we've done in the past, or similar to what we've done in the past, particularly in the summer season. I don't know in the winter season.
If I could, the applicant was asking, that our ordinance says it's 7 to 7 and 7 to 5 during central time, or when it's non-daylight savings, and they were asking for just a 7 to 7 across the board, and so that would be something for the board to either agree to or to hold to what the current hours are.
Discussion.
What are the current hours?
During non-daylight savings time, it's 7 o'clock to 5, and otherwise it's 7 to 7.
I'm amendable.
Yeah. So this is the request here is from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If my understanding, that's standard time.
Yes.
So we're actually going from 8 until 8 now. or how's that? When we go back?
No,
So
it's
that-
7 to 7, you know, is what our ordinance says. And then otherwise during non-daylight savings, it's 7 to 5.
Okay. Tim, or 7 to 7, or what?
I think for consistency, 7 to 7. When it's dark, there,
Ryan, I would agree.
yeah.
And then on Saturday, 7 to 3?
Yes,
Yes, that's fine.
that's what we agreed to. And what
Okay.
it is presently.
Yeah, I don't know what they're presently, what hours are they present? Candy, what are your hours presently? I mean, in the past.
This is Candy Anderson. The existing quarry has permanent hours of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. And we have occasionally hauled at night for interstate work.
Yeah,
That was why we originally put those hours in our original proposal, was we wanted to keep consistent with our existing permitted hours. But after we went going through the public hearing at the town of Lucas, then we offered to reduce the hours for the expansion area. Now, we would keep the existing hours at the existing quarry,
yeah,
but propose the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and the 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the expansion area.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's,
Yep, I understand that.
thank you.
You bet.
So that clarifies that. And so we're in agreement 7 to 7 and 7 to 3 then for the crushing and that type of work. Okay. Are we, did I cover everything? I guess what?
I think so.
I don't have a clue.
These things get pretty late. I know that.
Phew.
And I'm sure it's lengthy for everybody and it's lengthy for us too, but I guess it's necessary.
Yep.
So, so the motion that I'm going to rescind my motion. Tim, if you rescind your second, and then I'll make the same motion back and include the hours of operation in it.
Okay, that sounds fine.
We either do that or else we amend the motion. So
Just
I think-
resend.
Okay, so the motion is rescinded and then I make the same motion back, but include the hours of operation from 7 to 7 and 7 to 3 in the newer part of the mine that's being permitted. So we got the 72-hour notice, the 9 to 4, Monday through Friday, no holidays for the blasting. And the crusher is simply a notification, an annual notification of when that they're gonna be crushing and that they're gonna start. I'm not even sure they need an annual notification that they're gonna crush. I think we could just limit that to say notify when we're gonna start, you know. But anyway, and then the wells, we covered the wells with the closing of the wells, the 70-foot from the groundwater.
Yep.
The traffic, we covered that. The reclamation is included. And the construction aggregate is included in the motion as well as the hours of operation. So, and we have a motion and have a second to that from Tim.
Yep. Yep. Second.
Is there any further discussion?
No.
Can we wrap up?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there any opposed? The motion is carried. So, Bob, do you have any announcements?
I can release the court reporter now. So as long as we know what the hour that the meeting ended, so the court reporter can be dismissed and because we don't need the announcements in the minutes here. Next month, plan that we will have a hearing next month. I have it'll be milestone here again, but there will be 2 special exceptions for some temporary asphalt plants, but those should be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, they're a little simpler than this.
Quite
It
a bit.
won't bog you down as late next month, I promise.
So with that, that's my only announcement, Mr. Chair.
Okay, that's it. And we'll, thank you. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you all very much.
And we'll have, meeting or hearing is adjourned then.
All right, good night.